So good to see you. Evan and I do some version of this every year. Sometimes we talk about China, sometimes we talk about business stuff, advertising. Today we'll just do a little bit of everything.
Perfect. All right.
Done. All right, so this morning was interesting because Meta came out with a big announcement about their new, I won't even say that they're AR glasses, but they're like AI sort of glasses. You have been on this train for 10 years, doing spectacles and now doing specs launching in 2026. The spatial computing through glasses has been your baby. So what was your reaction to Meta's news today? What do you make of that product?
No, I'm not surprised. I think we've got a long history of really leading in innovative technology, and I think this time is no different. I think what is very helpful is that we've been able over the past 11 years to compound real technical advantages in this space because we've been singularly focused on building see-through glasses that have a computer inside at a time when most technology companies over the last 10 years have been very focused on virtual reality or the metaverse, the idea that we're going to leave the real world and go into this virtual space to interact together. And we've always believed that was pretty ridiculous because the real world is awesome. And people actually want to spend time in the real world together with their friends. And in fact, they're fed up with using screens for 7 hours a day. So we spend 7 hours a day hunched over these tiny glowing rectangles. And I think people have had enough. I think folks want a totally different form factor that allows them to keep their head up, to be in the world together with their friends and to share their computing experience. So that's the journey we've been on over the last 11 years. We're so excited to be launching our consumer version next year. But what's been great is developers have already been building such amazing lens experiences with the developer version of specs that's already out, that came out last year. So if you haven't had a chance to just see what people are building, the easiest way might just be going to the Spectacles Reddit channel, and you can just see almost every day people are building amazing stuff. It can give you a flavor for what's coming next year.
I've tried it, moving the jellyfish with my hands while wearing the glasses. Your LinkedIn is so funny because it lists you as the CEO and co-founder of Snap, but you also list yourself as the VP of product for Meta. What do you make of the fact that this is coming out after you've been doing this for 10 years? Like, do you feel like this was a whole thing with stories, right? Like they ripped off stories from Snap. They used that to their competitive advantage. Like, do you worry that that's the same play here?
I think this time is very different, right? When we started Snapchat, we were a late entrant to an already very developed, social media or digital advertising market, right? So, whether it's Google or Instagram or WhatsApp or Twitter, all of those services, Facebook, all of those services came before Snapchat, and they already had way more scale. They'd already had very well-developed digital advertising platforms, and so just to survive and grow in a market with such massive, trillion-dollar competitors, we've had to continually innovate and reinvent ourselves, reinvent our business. And now we're on pace to, reach 1 billion people using Snapchat next year. But I think this time is very different because it's a totally new device category and technology category. And so instead of being a late entrant, we're actually the leader in this market. And because we've been investing so consistently in this form factor and in this space for such a long time, we're the only player that actually has a fully integrated stack. So everything from the developer ecosystem, hundreds of thousands of developers build with our developer tools, our own proprietary rendering engine that's been honed over years and years on low-end smartphones. People use AR on Snapchat 8 billion times a day. Google search, I think, is 14 billion times a day. So just to give you a sense of the scale for how often people are using augmented reality just on the smartphone today. So that rendering engine has, I think, been a big part of our strategy and has been really honed through just so much use over so many years. And then, of course, we built our own operating system, our own optical engine, meaning that lens, that piece of glass that sits in front of your eye, and the projector system as well. And then, of course, more surprises coming next year. So I think that's a very meaningful advantage, and we're just so excited to be able to share this product with the broader world soon.
You used the word form factor. I remember when I covered your IPO back in 2018, it said on the S1, Snapchat is a camera company. Like, is Snapchat still a camera company? Is it a form factor company? Is it a specs company? What is Snapchat?
I think Snap is a technology company, but now as the company's evolved, we've got a number of different services. We've got, a communication service in Snapchat. With Lens Studio, we have, the world's most advanced augmented reality developer tools. And with Specs, we're trying to make computing more human. So I think now, we're a multi-product or multi-service company. But, Snap, I guess now you could say, is a technology company, although we are so passionate about the camera.
In terms of competing against folks like Meta, your stock is trading at a very different place than Meta's is. I can see one saying it would be very hard to compete financially with Meta. Like, what is your plan to be able to do that? Would you ever merge with a company? Would you raise money? Are you raising money?
I think we've been very capital efficient in terms of our investment in the hardware side, and again, I think part of that's just being early, right, and being able to consistently invest and compound this advantage. We've definitely explored ways to accelerate our progress there because we are really at this inflection point. I think partly because of all of the development in artificial intelligence. So not only do you get a much more human form factor, right? You're not staring at the screen that's blocking you from the world, but AI is able to see and understand the real world around you and also what you're doing on your computer. And so I think that sort of context is very, very powerful in this environment where AI can understand that and then make recommendations to you or otherwise assist you in your daily life overlaid on the real world. So I do think we are at a bit of an inflection point, although we certainly have the capital to continue to invest. We generate free cash flow on top of all the investments that we're making in this area. So I think we're well positioned to win, especially just given our leadership and our long-term focus on this space.
So no need to raise money or anything like that?
No need to, but I think if there's an opportunity for us to accelerate, that's something that we could consider.
And then when I think about everything that you guys are doing, you just wrote an investor letter. I thought this was interesting. You called this like a crucible moment. One of the things that you said was that you have to think about how you're going to increase margins to help fund some of these efforts. That's part of being in this crucible moment. And you said that one of the reasons that your margins are down now was because infrastructure costs, payouts to publishers, creators. Like, should we expect that in order to increase some of those margins to put Specs where you want it to go and compete, that you will, pay creators and publishers less? Like, what should I be making of that note in the letter?
Yeah, well, the number one way to improve our gross margins is to accelerate revenue growth. So that's primarily where we're focused. But I think one of the things I talk about in the letter is that Snap's a bit of a what I call a middle child, right? In the sense that we are very large in terms of our scale and our engagement, right? Reaching more than 75% of 13 to 34-year-olds in over 20 countries, including the U.S. On our way to 1 billion monthly active users next year. And at the same time, we generate far less revenue than some of these multi-trillion-dollar tech companies. So we're a lot bigger than smaller players like a Pinterest or a Reddit or something like that. But we have I think less revenue obviously than the bigger players, and so that squeezes our gross margin. So I think it's something for our team to be aware of. But I think if you looked at where I put gross margin in the list of our priorities, it was certainly far below our revenue acceleration efforts, both in terms of advertising, but also in terms of our direct revenue business. We now have a subscription business that I think is about $700 million in annual recurring revenue that we've developed over the last couple of years, and so
that's how many subscribers? 8 million.
I think we're close to 15, 16 million subscribers now, but that business is growing north of 60% year over year. So I think that's another really meaningful revenue driver for us.
That is pretty significant, 15 million subscribers. I know that other social media companies have not been able to achieve that number. When you talked about Google and you were saying that Snap, you've got so many AI lens use cases comparable to a giant like Google. Are there other tech giants out there where you feel as though that your usage and adoption is just as good, is just as big, can compete, that people don't see or understand? Are there other companies that... Like, you think about the use case for lenses. I think about the number of pictures that one takes or selfies that one takes. Like, how big, help me understand how big Snap is that people might not realize.
Gosh, I mean, I guess maybe, I was watching the Apple iPhone keynote the other day. I ordered an orange iPhone Pro. I'm very excited. I'm waiting for them to make yellow. But I think during their keynote presentation, they announced that, I guess globally, people take 500 billion selfies a year on all iPhones. So I sent a note to our team. I'm like, God, 500 seems a little low. Like, I don't know, you know? And turns out people on Snapchat take well over 1 trillion selfies a year. So more than a multiple of all selfies taken on all iPhones every year, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Are you the biggest selfie company in the world?
I mean, I hope so, right? I feel like that would be awesome. I don't know.
Maybe you should be in your S1 next time, Snapchat, the selfie company. Evan, you always have really smart thoughts on national security and China, and obviously we're in a place now where it looks like a deal might be imminent to hand U.S. operations of TikTok over to Oracle, Silver Lake, and Andreessen Horowitz. I'm just curious your take on that deal. Do you think that solves the national security question?
It's so hard to say without, you know, any disclosures around the deal. So I think, you know, we should all wait and see, you know, if any specifics are disclosed, and then, you know, we can ascertain, you know, whether or not it addresses the issues that Congress was concerned about.
And broadly speaking, do you think it's a good thing if it gets sold to a U.S. company or U.S. investors?
Again, I think it's hard to say without understanding the specifics. I think the concern, of course, is that it, you know, creates a precedent, and I think that's what China has always been worried about, that, you know, if there's this precedent that now anywhere a Chinese company operates, the country could just decide, hey, actually, we're going to take a piece of that. You know, I think there's some real concern, and I think United States-based companies should also share that concern that could happen in other countries around the world as well.
Yep, I think Meta has a similar point of view on that. Quickly, wanted to just ask you about Spotlight. So this was, as we were talking about TikTok, your sort of TikTok competitor. It's vertical video. It's, you know, focused on creators. One of the things you mentioned in that letter is, like, how do we figure out ways to drive even more engagement in Spotlight because it's working? Like, what is the path forward for Spotlight? How are you going to grow it?
Yeah, so I think Spotlight's now, more than 40% of our total content view time. So I think it's grown quite nicely, you know, really as a complement to stories. I mean, stories are really kind of a chronological kind of day in the life, right? That much more about these authentic moments throughout your day. And I think Spotlight has really become more of a best of Snapchat. And certainly what's been great about Spotlight is the way that it's helped creators grow their distribution. In the past, it was more difficult for creators to add new subscribers or find new folks to follow their content. Now with Spotlight, if they make a great video, they can get discovered a lot more easily. So I think we've gotten some really good feedback around that. I think as I look at our strategy for differentiating Spotlight, it's really about using the strengths of our camera. People are making billions and billions of snaps every single day in our camera, and so there's so much, you know, organic, exclusive content that's native to Snapchat, and really making sure we're distributing that content, I think can make Spotlight a differentiated surface on the internet. We
are running out of time, so I just have one somewhat fun, somewhat controversial thing to ask you, which is, Snapchat has still not brought Donald Trump back on the app. You're one of if the only social media company to hold out on your core decision, your initial decision. You walk me through why that is, and, you know, I haven't seen you dine at the White House, for example. Like, you're not one of those tech CEOs that is scrambling to be in that environment. I just want your POV on that.
Well, as the president would say, fake news. He's got access to the White House account, to his personal account on Snapchat. So I think, you know, we've always engaged, and this is the case with this administration, but it's also been the case, you know, with prior administrations. We try to be constructive, and we generally engage privately on the issues that are most important to them. So I think, you know, more recently that was the Take It Down Act, which was signed into law. I think that's a really important piece of legislation that will help keep young people safe online. The First Lady just invited teens from our Wellbeing Council to the White House, which was super cool, and they got to have that experience and talk about online safety, you know, at the White House. So I think, you know, we found ways to really try to be constructive, to make sure that we're doing our part. I think, you know, as an online service, right, as a digital platform, we have a real responsibility to our community, to Americans here in our country, and we're always looking for ways to work constructively with this administration and other administrations.
1 trillion selfies, Evan. That is quite a legacy and a feat. Evan Spiegel, round of applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Evan.